Hello Physics 277 students and anyone else out there on YouTube who may be watching this video. This video is number 4 in our series about editing with Emacs, and today we're going to talk about having multiple buffers in Emacs and using split windows. So why would you want to use these features of Emacs? Well, let's suppose we're editing a file and we'd like to switch between one file and another. Or we'd like to write out our file to something new, or even better, perhaps insert another file into the middle of a file that we're editing. There are ways to do this in Emacs. So we'll start off doing this by example. So let me do an ls command on the directory I have here, and I have a number of files, including a couple of the Fortran files that I've been playing around with in class. So let's start off by editing with Emacs a file hello_world.foa, which was our first Fortran program that we'll have written in class. Okay, so when I do that, we pop up and we have our familiar areas that we're used to using in Emacs. We have the main buffer or main window up here at the top that displays the text of our file. We have our mode line down here, and then the line down here where we can basically enter commands if we use escape X to get down to the command line. So let's start off with something simple. Suppose I want to write this file out to something that is a new file. Let's maybe write out a file hello_world2.foa. How could I do that? Well, I would use the control sequence Control X, Control W, which means write as or save as. So I'll type Control X and then Control W, and down here it's prompting me at the very bottom for a new file name to enter that I want to write this file out as. So let's enter a new file name, hello world2.fo8. Now notice that currently, before I hit enter here, the mode line here says I'm editing hello_world.fo8. Once I hit enter, all right, that mode line now changes. It says I'm now editing the file hello_world2.fo8. So what I've done is I've written the contents of this buffer out to this file hello_world2.fo8, and that's the file I'm now currently editing. So if I make a change now, let's add another line of code here. Let's say hello world, and let's change that to goodbye cruel world. Right, now I've made a change there, and when I save it, that save is being written out to my new file hello_world2.fo8. We're no longer editing the file hello_world.fo8. Okay, so that's very useful. We can write a file out to something different. Now, what happened to the original file that we were editing, the original buffer? It's still there, we just don't see it yet. All right, let me, before we do that, introduce the idea that will make life a little easier, to introduce the notion of splitting the window here in Emacs. It might be useful if we'd like to edit two files at once within Emacs to be able to split this window in two, and there's a mechanism for doing that in Emacs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type the control sequence Control X and then hit the 2 button, and now I have two windows that are open in Emacs. The top one here is editing hello_world2.fo8, and so is the bottom. All right. Now, how can I edit down here in the bottom? Because if I click with the mouse, it doesn't do anything because Emacs isn't really using the mouse here. I can use it to highlight text, but the cursor remains up here in the top. If I like to switch between the two windows, that is, move my cursor to the bottom window, I just type Control X and little o. All right. So that is going to allow me to edit or switch to a different window that I'm editing in. Now I'm editing in the bottom window. All right. Let's save this bottom window as a temporary file. Control X, Control W, which we've already introduced, and I'll label this as temp.txt. All right. Now the bottom mode has changed into text mode here. It's no longer in the Fortran 90 mode that we were using. When I switch back up here to the top, though, I'll type Control X O, which will switch back to the top. It'll be up here, and I can then use this window and open another buffer. Here I'm going to introduce a new command. Control X, Control F. All right, it's going to prompt me down here at the bottom to pick a file. So let's pick hello underscore world 2.f08. Let's go back to hello underscore world.f08. All right, now the top window is now in Fortran 90 mode. The bottom window is in text mode. I can switch back and forth between them, all right, by just typing Control XO. Now my cursor is in the bottom window, Control XO again, and my cursor is in the top window. Let me write down these control sequences for you in this temporary text window here that I created down on the bottom. I'll say Control XO, all right, and here I'll just delete these lines of text right there, and let's just list the control sequences we've covered so far. We had Control X, Control W, which I'm abbreviating here as C-X and C-W, as we normally do in the notation that we use for Emacs commands. And this means save file as, I'll put that in quotes, or write file as. All right, this allows you to write things out with a new file. All right, we have Control X2, and what that does is it splits the window vertically. Oops. Okay, and we also learned about Control XO, and that's a lowercase o, and that means move cursor to other window. And the last command we've done, and I'll put it up here above right after Control X, Control W, was Control X, Control F, which is it finds a new file to edit. Okay, so I've got two commands here that involve buffers, and I've got two commands here that basically involve windowing. All right, let's go to the top. I'll type Control X O, and now my cursor's up in the top window. Let's open another file that I have present here. I'll type Control X, Control F, all right, and let's go back to edit hello underscore world 2.f08. Right? So now this is hello underscore world 2.f08, and you can see that that's different from my hello underscore world because I had this second line of output here, goodbye cruel world. All right. Now, what if I want to go back to edit the hello underscore world.f08? Do I have to use Control X, Control F again to find the file? And the answer is no. That buffer is already open. It's there in Emacs. Can we see where it is? Right now, no. I'll show you how to deal with that in just a second. All right. But before I do that, let me go back and show you how to go back to a single window here. If I want to go back to just a single window, and let's say I want to go back to the top window here, I place my cursor in the top window, which it already is, and I can type Control X1. All right, and that returns me to just having a single window. What happened to all my other buffers? Here's what I can do to find out about my other buffers. I can say Escape X, and now I'm down on the command line, and I can say list buffers like this. And what it will do is it will split the window into two. The top window now has the buffer I was currently working on, and the bottom window shows me a list of all the buffers that I have open. I have hello underscore world 2.f08. I have hello underscore world.f08. I have this other one, temp.txt, which I was editing. Those are there. I have another one that's always open in Emacs. It's called a scratch window. You can always use that if you want to write something down as sort of a scratch pad, right? And one called messages. We won't worry about that one for now. How do I switch between them? All right. Well, let's first go back to a single window, and I'll show you that way. All right. Now, suppose I want to go to another buffer. I can type Control X B here, and it's going to ask me to switch to another buffer, and I can give it the name of another buffer to switch to. So if I just take the default here, which is hello underscore world.fo8, if I just hit enter right now, it'll take me to that. Let me try that again. I'll hit escape X and, or I'm sorry, I do control G to abort that. I didn't want to do that command yet. Let's do control X B, all right? It's asking me to switch to a buffer, but this time I'll give it temp.txt, and now it takes me to the temp.txt file. So we have another couple control sequences we can enter here. Let's put it here, control X1. Oops. I'm having a little typing problem here right now. Control X1 basically reduces me to a single window. All right. So reduce to a single window. All right. And we also had control XB, which I'll put up here actually. Control XB, because it's a buffer command. And that is switch to another buffer. Okay. So I've introduced 3 windowing commands and 3 buffer commits. Actually, there was one more. There was escape X, which we abbreviate as capital M-X here. And that takes me to the command line, and I have to type in the command list buffers. All right. So I've got 7 commands there that I can deal with now. Let me introduce one more here, and that's the insert into command. All right. To do that, let me first show you here. Let's go to, well, let me save this. I'll type Control X, Control S, and save that. It's not always a good idea to save frequently, as I mentioned before in my previous Emacs videos. Let's go back to the temporary.txt window. All right. Temp.txt. All right. Now I'm back in that. Okay. Now suppose I wanted to, I wouldn't really, there's no reason I would normally want to do this, but let's suppose right here in the middle of this temporary.txt window, I wanted to insert the hello underscore world.fo8 file that I have. I can do that by typing Control X and hitting I, all right? And it prompts me down at the bottom again for a file name, and then I'll just put in the file name I want to insert. Hello underscore world.fo8, all right? And it inserted that text here from the file into the middle of this buffer. So I have that here, all right? And we can use that to insert the contents of one text file into another text file. Okay, so that's very useful. So let me add that to the commands up here too. I'll just delete that. I didn't really want to use that. Control X I, which means insert contents of file, all right, into buffer. Let me just illustrate that a bit more. Where that works is where it will insert the contents is where your cursor currently is. So for example, if I move down here and I say Control X I and give it hello underscore world dot fo8, it inserts it right where the cursor was. On the other hand, if I went up here and put the cursor right there, and I type Control X I and again gave it hello underscore world dot fo8, all right, there it is right there. All right, it inserts it wherever the current point is, that is where the cursor is within a given buffer. All right, so I'll delete that. And let me delete this down here. Lastly, I'll just illustrate that. Let me save that as I normally do. Let me switch to 2 windows again. I'll split the window. I'll basically use Control XO to move to the bottom window here. Here I'll open hello world.fo8. I'll say Control XB, and that's my default, so I'll just take that. Now I have this open here. All right. Is it possible for me to have both windows open on the same file? Yes, it is. Let me illustrate that. Control XO to switch to the top window. And here I'll say Control XB, and I'll take hello underscore world dot fo8. All right. So I have both windows open to hello underscore world dot fo8. And I can see here if I enter a new line up here, like this is a new line, it simultaneously shows up in both windows. Now, why would you want to do this? This is often very useful when you are editing a source code file that's fairly long, and you may have things like variable declarations at the top of the source code file, and you may be interested in working on a section of code that's hundreds of lines later in the file. What you can do is you can have two windows open to the same file. You could have the top window open to where your variable declarations are. You can have the bottom window open to another portion of the file, and that way you can see two different portions of the same file at the same time. So this is a very useful and very powerful feature of Emacs. So let me save that. Let me switch back to the temporary.txt file again here, and we'll do Control X1 to get back to a single window. Just to recap, I have a number of commands I've introduced here, 8 in total. I have several, actually let me split them up this way. I have 5 that basically work on buffers. They're Control X, Control W, which is save file as, Control X, Control F, which finds a new file to edit, Control X B, which switches to another buffer, Control XI, which inserts the contents of a file into a buffer, and then Escape X, and then I can type the command list buffers, which splits the window when I do that. So I also have these 3 commands which are very useful. Control X2 splits the window into 2 vertically. Control X1 reduces to a single window, and Control XO moves the cursor to another window. Let me illustrate one final thing though before we end this video. Let me type Control X2, which I've split this into multiple windows. All right, and let's type Control XO here to move the cursor to the bottom. All right, now I'm in the bottom window. And let's open a different buffer, Control XB. I'll take hello world.f08 there. What if I wanted to split the bottom window into 2 or the top window into 2? Could I do that? Yes, I'll just type Control X2 again. Now the bottom window is split into 2, all right, meaning that I have 3 total windows open. If I type Control XO, all it does is it keeps toggling its cycles between the 3 of them. Control XO there takes me to the second window. Control X there takes me to the third window. Control XO again takes me to the top window. So let me go to this bottom window again. Control XO, and I can open a third file here. Or a third buffer, right? And let's hello underscore world 2. So I have 3 different buffers open on 3 different windows. All right. If I type Control X1, it takes me back to a single window, Control X1. All right. So this is very useful and very powerful features of Emacs that allow you to switch between multiple buffers, edit multiple files at the same time, have multiple windows open to look at multiple files or even one file in 2 different places. So I'll stop with this for now. If you have any questions about this, if you're one of my Physics 277 students, I'll be happy to talk to you about it at office hours, or you could post a comment, or if you're a viewer who's not one of my students, you can post a comment, and I'll be happy to respond to it. Otherwise, we'll see you here next time.